Cairo, Egypt, November 4, 2023. The sun was setting over the Giza Plateau, casting long, blood-red shadows across the sands that have swallowed empires. The air was thick with heat and the smell of ancient dust. Among the last group of tourists leaving the enclosure of the Great Sphinx was the Harrington family from Manchester, England. Arthur Harrington, a structural engineer working on a dam project in Aswan, and his wife, Sarah, a primary school teacher, were holding the hands of their 5-year-old son, Lucas. Lucas was a typical child, blonde, blue-eyed, obsessed with Lego blocks, and afraid of the dark. He had never shown any interest in history. In fact, he had complained the entire car ride about the heat. But as they walked past the dream stele, the granite slab that sits between the paws of the Sphinx, Lucas stopped. His small hand went rigid in Sarah's grip. He dropped his toy truck. "Lucas, come on, darling, the bus is waiting," Sarah said, tugging gently. Lucas didn't move. His head snapped up, looking directly at the weathered face of the Sphinx. His pupils dilated until his eyes were almost entirely black. The wind seemed to die down around them. The chatter of the tourists faded into an unnatural silence. Then, Lucas opened his mouth, but the sound that came out wasn't a child's whine. It was a deep, resonant vibration, a language that sounded like stones grinding against each other, interspersed with high-pitched whistling clicks. Ka Sekhem, Ra Atef. The cycle is complete. The eye of the lion is opening. He switched to perfect, unaccented English, a vocabulary far beyond his years. "You are walking on the roof," Lucas said, pointing a trembling finger at the solid bedrock beneath their feet. "Why do you walk on the roof of the library? Do you not hear the machines humming? They are waking up. The sun has touched the marker." A security guard, a burly man named Ahmed, who had guarded the plateau for 15 years, approached them. "No stopping here, please. Closing time." Lucas spun around to face Ahmed. The guard froze. He later testified that he felt an electric shock pass through his body when the boy looked at him. "Ahmed ibn Yusuf, you found the green stone in the sand 3 years ago. You hid it in your shoe. You have it in your home, under the floorboards. Put it back. It is the key to the first lock." Ahmed turned the color of ash. He stumbled back, dropping his walkie-talkie. He had found a small green stone. He had hidden it. He had told absolutely no one, not even his wife. It was his deepest secret. Sarah screamed as Lucas's eyes rolled back into his head and he collapsed onto the sand, his body convulsing as if overloaded with energy. The chaos that followed was a blur of ambulance sirens and panicked shouting. Lucas was rushed to the Al Salam International Hospital in Maadi. The doctors suspected heat stroke, epilepsy, or severe dehydration, but the monitors told a different story. Dr. Rania El-Masri, a neurologist with 20 years of experience, stared at the EEG readout in disbelief. "This is impossible," she muttered to Arthur and Sarah, who were huddled in the corner of the private room, terrified. "What is it? Is he brain dead?" Arthur asked, his voice cracking. "Quite the opposite," Dr. El-Masri said, tapping the screen. "Look at these delta waves. They are usually present in deep sleep, but Lucas is showing delta waves combined with gamma waves, the frequency of high-level information processing. It's like he's downloading data. His brain is active in regions we normally don't see lit up simultaneously. The language centers, the mathematical processing centers, the long-term memory, they are all firing at maximum capacity." Suddenly, Lucas sat up in the hospital bed. He didn't blink. He didn't ask for his mother. He asked for a pen. "I need to draw the schematic," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "The water damage is getting worse. If the water breaches the lower chamber, the hall will be destroyed before the warning can be delivered." Sarah handed him a notepad, her hands shaking. "What hall, Lucas?" Lucas didn't look at her. He began to draw. He drew with the speed and precision of a CAD machine, straight lines without a ruler, perfect circles, complex geometric angles. He drew a cross-section of the Giza Plateau. He drew the Sphinx, and then he drew what was under it. It was a complex network of tunnels, chambers, and shafts spiraling down into the earth. He labeled them not in English, but in hieroglyphs, and another script, a series of dots and lines that looked like star charts. Here, he pointed to a large circular chamber located exactly 30 meters beneath the left paw of the Sphinx, the Hall of Records. We sealed it 12,500 years ago, before the Great Flood, before the comet hit the ice. Being an engineer, Arthur looked at the drawing. He felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. Sarah, this is structurally sound. These load-bearing arches, this is advanced engineering. Lucas can't even tie his shoelaces. How does he know about subterranean load distribution? Lucas looked up. I am not Lucas right now, Father. I am Toth Amon. I was the architect, and I have returned because the sun is angry again. The story would have ended there, dismissed as a medical anomaly, if Arthur hadn't made a phone call. Desperate for answers, he called an old university friend, Dr. Julian Thorne, a British Egyptologist who was currently in Cairo working on a restoration project. Thorne arrived at the hospital skeptical. Arthur, kids have wild imaginations. He probably saw a documentary. Just talk to him, Arthur begged. He knows things, Julian. He knew about the guard's stolen stone. Thorne entered the room. Lucas was sitting cross-legged, staring at the wall. Hello, Lucas, Thorne said gently. I'm Julian. I dig up old things. Lucas turned his head slowly. You are looking in the wrong place, Julian, he said. You are digging at Saqqara, looking for the tomb of Imhotep. You won't find him there. He is not in a tomb. He ascended. Thorne froze. He hadn't told anyone he was secretly looking for Imhotep's tomb. That was his private obsession. Who told you that? Thorne asked, his voice hardening. The vibration of the limestone tells me, Lucas replied. But we don't have time for your little dig. We need to go to the Sphinx. The oscillation has started. What oscillation? Lucas grabbed Thorne's hand. The professor gasped. He felt a literal vibration, a hum passing from the child's hand into his own arm. The earth is a magnet. The core is shifting. The Sphinx sits on the anchor point. Under the paw, there is a machine, a resonator. It stabilizes the field, but it has been asleep for too long. And the sun is preparing to sneeze. To sneeze? Thorne asked, baffled. A micronova, Lucas clarified, using a term from astrophysics that a 5-year-old should not know. A recurring solar event every 12,000 years. The last one melted the ice and drowned the world. That is why we built the Sphinx, not as a statue, as a marker, as a bunker. Thorne looked at the drawings on the bed. He saw the coordinates, he saw the layout, and then he saw something that stopped his heart. Lucas had drawn a symbol in the corner, a specific arrangement of 3 stars over a pyramid. The Belt of Orion, Thorne whispered. 10,500 BC. That was the date of the sealing. And now the cycle ends. You must take me there tonight. If we don't activate the resonator, the magnetic field will collapse when the solar wind hits. The atmosphere will burn. It was insane. It was illegal. It was dangerous. But Dr. Thorne was convinced. The specifics of the guard's stone, the knowledge of his own secret excavation, the impossible physics in the drawings. It was too much to ignore. Using his credentials and a significant amount of bribe money, Thorne arranged for a private night viewing of the Sphinx. He called Ahmed, the guard Lucas had terrified, and asked him to be on duty. Ahmed agreed instantly, terrified to refuse the boy with the demon eyes. At 2 a.m., the group stood before the Sphinx under the moonlight. The silence of the desert was heavy. Lucas walked ahead, pulling away from his mother. He didn't look tired. He looked energized, as if the plateau itself was charging him. He walked to the side of the Sphinx, near the right flank, not the front. The books say the entrance is under the paw, Lucas whispered. That is the trap. That is for the grave robbers. The real entrance is here, where the vibration is strongest. He pointed to a seemingly solid block of limestone that looked identical to thousands of others. Ahmed, Lucas commanded. "Give me the green stone." Ahmed, trembling, reached into his pocket. He had retrieved the stone from his home, just as Lucas had said. He handed the small, rough emerald to the boy. Lucas placed the stone into a small, almost invisible fissure in the rock. It fit perfectly. Click. A sound like a heavy breath exhaling came from the ground. The massive limestone block didn't slide, it dissolved. It retracted into the rock face, revealing a dark, smooth tunnel that sloped downward at a 45-degree angle. "My God," Arthur whispered. "It's nanotechnology, or sound frequency manipulation. That's not a mechanical door." "Hurry," Lucas said, his voice echoing from the tunnel. "The air inside is pure, but the systems are dormant. We must wake them." They descended for what felt like an eternity. The air didn't smell stale or musty like a tomb. It smelled of ozone, crisp and electric, like the air after a thunderstorm. At the bottom of the shaft, the tunnel opened up into a cavern that defied all archaeological history. It was not a rough cave. It was a perfectly polished sphere of black basalt, easily 50 meters across. The walls were lined not with shelves of scrolls, but with rows of crystalline cylinders, glowing with a faint, pulsing blue light. In the center of the room sat a machine. It looked like a large metallic lotus flower, closed tight. "The Hall of Records," Dr. Thorne wept, falling to his knees. "Edgar Cayce predicted it. The ancients spoke of it. It's real. It's actually real." Lucas walked to the metallic lotus. He was too short to reach the top. "Papa, lift me up," he ordered. Arthur, moving like a man in a dream, lifted his son. Lucas placed both hands on the top of the metal flower. "System, reboot. Authorization, Architect Toth Aman. Cycle 12. He spoke in English, but the room responded in a language of light and sound. The crystals on the walls flared up. Holographic projections filled the air. But they weren't just pictures. They were three-dimensional historical records. They saw the building of the pyramids, not by slaves dragging stones, but by sound levitation, huge blocks floating through the air guided by strange tuning forks. They saw a civilization that looked like science fiction. Glass towers, flying vehicles, green landscapes where the Sahara now lies. And then they saw the catastrophe. A red light filled the hologram, the sun. It flared. A massive wave of plasma hit the Earth. The ice caps melted instantly. A wall of water kilometers high swept across the continents. The civilization was wiped out in hours. "This is what happened," Lucas said, his voice booming in the chamber. "And this is what is coming." The hologram changed. It showed the current Earth. It showed the magnetic field, a blue cage around the planet, looking weak, tattered, full of holes. The shield is down to 15%. The sun is waking up. The cycle is 12,000 years. We are at year 12,001. Dr. Thorne scrambled to set up his camera. "Lucas, when? When will it happen?" Lucas turned to look at the camera. The blue light from the machine illuminated his face, making him look ethereal, otherworldly. "The warning is written in the sky and in the stone," Lucas said. "The sun will release the micronova on September 23rd, 2027. Sarah gasped. That's less than 4 years away." "Unless we fix the shield," Lucas continued. "This machine, it connects to the other two, one in the Yucatan, one in Antarctica. They form a triangle. If they are all active, they can boost the magnetic field. They can deflect the plasma." "Are they active?" Arthur asked. Lucas closed his eyes. "The Yucatan is damaged. It is underwater. The Antarctica node is buried under 2 miles of ice. I can only activate this one." The metallic lotus beneath his hands began to spin. A hum, loud and powerful, shook the cavern. A beam of pure white energy shot up from the center of the flower, through the rock, through the Sphinx above, and into the night sky. Outside, on the Giza Plateau, Ahmed, the guard, watched in terror as the Sphinx seemed to glow. A beam of light erupted from its head, piercing the clouds. In Cairo, millions of people woke up as the night sky turned as bright as day for 10 seconds. Then, silence. The machine slowed down. The blue lights on the walls dimmed to a steady, low pulse. Lucas slumped in his father's arms. "It is done," he whispered, his voice returning to that of a tired child. "The beacon is lit. The others must be found. Humanity must find them, or the sky will burn." The Egyptian military arrived 10 minutes later. They found the family and Dr. Thorne coming out of the impossible door, which sealed itself behind them and turned back into solid rock. They were arrested, interrogated, and held for weeks. Their cameras were confiscated. The footage was deleted. But Dr. Thorne had live-streamed the audio to a secure server in London. The world governments denied everything. They claimed it was a military test, a light show, a prank. They claimed the Hall of Records was a myth. They discredited Dr. Thorne, ruining his career. But they couldn't explain the beam of light. They couldn't explain the sudden magnetic anomalies recorded by satellites that night. And they couldn't explain Lucas. 6 months have passed. The family is back in Manchester, living under a fake name. Lucas is 5 years old again. He plays with Legos. He watches cartoons. He doesn't remember being Thoth Amon. He doesn't remember the Hall of Records. But sometimes, Sarah finds him drawing. He draws a map of Antarctica. He draws a specific spot in the Wilkes Land crater. And he draws a date over and over again. September 23rd, 2027. Last week, a package arrived at their door. No return address. Inside was a piece of rock, the same black basalt from the chamber, and a note. The note was from Dr. Thorne. It read, "They found the anomaly in Antarctica. The ice is melting faster there than anywhere else. They are drilling. They believe you. The race is on." This is not just a story about a boy. It is a warning. The Giza Plateau is closed for renovations indefinitely. The Sphinx is covered in scaffolding. Governments are building bunkers. The billionaires are buying land in New Zealand. They know. Lucas gave us a chance. He lit the first beacon, but the shield is still weak. The clock is ticking. September 23, 2027. Look at the sun. Does it look brighter to you? Does it feel hotter? The cycle is ending. The Hall of Records is open. The question is, will we finish what the architects started? Or will we go the way of the civilization before us? Time will tell. It always does.